Hi, it's Stephanie Pruitt. It is day 12 of 30 by 30 by 30, where I'm writing 30 poems in 30 days in relation to works at the 30 Americans exhibit. And I'm coming to you again from a stairwell at the Frisk Center. This has become one of my favorite spaces for just kind of sitting and thinking. After I've written in the gallery, sometimes I need to just decompress a little bit and kind of go through my thoughts. I do challenge myself to do all of my writing and quick, revisions and edits right there in front of the work at the gallery. But afterwards, I like to just kind of sit for a moment, and I often come and sit on the steps. They're quiet, even though there's this great kind of echo. Very few people take the stairs, so they end up being kind of a nice nook of a spot where I can sit. So I'm in one of my favorite places. Today I drafted a poem in relation to a work by Wangechi Mutu, who was born in Nairobi, Kenya in 1972, currently living and working in New York, New York. The title of the work is Non Je ne Negreta Rien, created in 2007. It is composed of ink, acrylic, glitter, cloth, paper collage, plastic, and mixed media on Mylar. Okay, it's Stephanie. Technical difficulties here. Let me tell you what's going on. So I was here at the Frisk yesterday for day 12, wrote the poem, immediately recorded here on the steps. When I got home to do the quick editing and posting, the sound and everything was so horribly out of sync and messed up, and it went way beyond my technical capabilities. For the first time in 30 by 30 by 30, the video is actually late. It's not being posted on the day that it was created, and I'm having to kind of creatively patch this in. But let me just catch up where we left off, and just take this as, hey, I'm committed to making it work, even if sometimes I don't, make it work in the exact timeline I expected. But okay, so the draft of the poem in relation to Wangechi Mutu's work is called Unblanking the Page. Unblanking the Page. A tentacle, 2 motorcycle wheels, a stork, and some glitter walk into a bar. No, that's not how it goes. A lady's leg, pearl beads, a puff of smoke, and splashes of glitter placed into a frame. Yes. A mesh of bodies, maybe. An explosion of womanness. I don't fully know what this poem is about, nor the image that spurred it, but questions at times jazz me more than an answer. So I write, through the lovely muck, through the gaggle of blur, colors, lines, layers, merged on one large sheet, once blank, now not. All right, so I know one big aha moment that I was really working towards in that draft is how sometimes initially when we encounter something that's disfamiliar and we're looking for kind of a place to hook in and start, as a way of kind of appeasing or comforting ourselves, we'll start with a joke or maybe play it off. And I'm trying to work through that what I think is mental laziness. I mean, starting with humor, and humor can be a very important tool. Comedy shows and humor there can be so much truth and really useful information in humor. But when jokes are used to deflect from a reality or a challenge that actually needs to be dealt with head on, I don't think it's the most useful tool. So in that draft of the poem, I started with a joke, kind of showing the reality of encountering a work that I'm trying to locate in my mind, and how initially it's tempting to almost kind of deflect and play it off, but then pushing through the process of just acknowledging I'm working through this, and taking it more seriously step by step and considering possibilities. And I think that was just an open, honest kind of way of exploring and engaging and writing and thinking and considering something that's in front of me. The other thing about the day and the draft of the poem, the artist and the work I was writing about, initially when I looked at her name and the description of the work, I've flipped through so many contemporary art books and exhibition catalogs, and so I've been really excited to see Mutu's work in person. I think she's doing some really interesting things with collage and the woman's body as a landscape, as a pieced together landscape. Really amazing work, but I'd never seen it in person, and I'd never actually talked to other people or heard a lecture about her work. So I had never pronounced her name out loud, and the title of the collage that I wrote about, I believe, is in French, so that was also disfamiliar for me. This made me think about how we deal with language, especially language when we are, I'm a literate person, I can read, so I expect initially when I encounter letters in English, A, B, C, D, E, and they're composed or put together in what I think is English, I think I should be able to read it. The reality is there are all sorts of words I've never actually had in my mouth. I've read them in my mind, I've seen them, I'm familiar with them, I know what they mean, but I haven't talked to someone else about them, I haven't heard someone else say them. I'm not always able to be secure in my pronunciation of them. But what I will not do is allow that to keep me from engaging with a person or a work. And I will not allow myself to disrespect a person by glossing over their real name and giving them like a quick nickname or something like that. I just think it's rude and mentally lazy. I mean, I might not pronounce it correctly the first time I try, but I'll say to a person, I really want to get your name right. Will you say it for me one more time slowly? Or I'll take the time if there's a phrase that I've been thinking about but I've never spoken it out loud, and I'll do an online search. Maybe, with dictionary apps, a lot of those will pronounce the word for you. Or I'll look up a video clip of the person giving a lecture and hear how they're introduced and hear how they speak their name. There's so many resources and ways for us to engage with language and pronounce things correctly. I think it just shows our disregard for people when we won't take that step. And it also shows our kind of hierarchical judgments that we place when we aren't willing to try to put certain words in our mouths. I have written sometimes in dialect, and this is a thing I've done with great awareness of the history in which I'm kind of tapping into. And so I'm always interested when people see those poems that I've written, if they're willing to even try to sound out the words that are very intuitively spelled and kind of what their thoughts are around that. And just interested in seeing how language is also a hierarchy, kind of a marker for hierarchies and judgments that we place. So a lot of things I'm thinking about there, but part of my point is my cell phone was not picking up a signal in the gallery, and so I was quickly trying to search and hear a pronunciation of Wangechi Mutu's name to ensure that I was pronouncing it correctly, and I wasn't able to do that in advance, but I decided that's not going to stop me from engaging with the work and making this video and talking about it in the way that's the most honest and sincere that I can right now, knowing that I'm still learning and knowing that I'm absolutely going to find the correct pronunciation of her name. And if I ever meet her, because I really love your work, I will be able to properly greet her. And that's a little mental step, a little mental risk we can take. I think that's a cool thing, like to think about. Just getting someone's name right or getting a phrase pronounced properly is a small mental risk that we can take that shows our flexibility and our willingness to continually learn and not think that we know it all. And, anyway, let me not get into a rant. Okay, so today we know it's actually day 13, but I'm talking about day 12 because of my technical little difficulties. So I'm back at the Frisk Center. I'm about to actually now go write for day 13, but first I wanted to make sure I was completely caught up with the video and that it'll be up. So it is, and that's just the reality of, I guess, a creative project. Sometimes things go exactly as you plan, sometimes they don't, and you figure out how to make it work. So I'm glad you're still making it work with me. I'll see you all soon.